Now, the different types of supports that we talk about that I want to talk about are TRXs. You can use straps. There's handles. There's different form of bench, right? No, like bench pressing on a physio ball is not a very stable situation. There's not a lot of support, right? The reason why we're doing a bench press or a dumbbell press on a stable, firm surface is because we need that stability and support from the opposite direction to help push the dumbbells up. But the thing is though, it's not bad to do quote unquote functional exercise or use free weights, right? Or you within your body create stability. If I look at athletics or I look at life, when we go to take a step, we have to create that stability within ourselves, right? If I go to step with my right foot forward, my left glute has to flex to stabilize my body so that my right leg can go forward. We have to learn how to do that, right? On our own, that's totally fine. But there's nothing wrong with working on the pieces of that, right? If I bring my car to the mechanic, right? I've never brought my car to the mechanic and they come out and say, hey, Curtis, your right front tire is flat. You need a whole new car. They've never said that. What do? They work on the pieces of that, or they essentially work on that tire, make sure everything's aligned, and the car runs fine. The same thing can apply to exercise. If you potentially work on pieces of the motion that you're trying to do, say it's a squat, right? You work on, say, the muscle contraction or the motion that happens at the squat at the knee, whether you do a leg extension, hamstring curl, whatever it is, that can help you do a squat better, right? And then you can go train a squat. That could be your warm-up for that. It just depends. It could be something to help reinforce that. There's nothing wrong with either or. Support isn't a bad thing, right? So if the whole point of exercise is to get stronger and make your muscle in this scenario more efficient or just get stronger, right? Why not use machines? They give you the best chance to produce more force because you're in a stable environment, right? Your muscles and body only understand the language of force. That could be with a band. That could be with gravity. I'm dealing with gravity right now sitting in this chair. That could deal with a free weight. It could deal with machine. I have some air machines here made by Kaiser. That's just force. It's just different. Your muscles understand force. So if we apply force to tissue, adaptations will happen. Right? I remember I was going to this class back in the day, and a guy that really changed my perspective on exercise, approaching the body, was this guy named Matthew Bernier. And his business is in Denver. It's called the Muscle Project. Show him some love on Instagram. Big love to you, Matt. But no, he is an awesome guy. And so I remember he said this. It was kind of a simple concept. He said, unicorns are kind of the craze right now, essentially. And if I wanted to make my kid a unicorn, I potentially could. And I was like, wait, what? And he was just giving an analogy, essentially. But he said, if I poked my daughter in the forehead all day, right, eventually the bone would adapt to that and grow based on the direction of force. So she would have a little horn in the middle of her forehead. I was like, wow, that's crazy, man. But tissue, bone, muscle, they adapt to that, right? They adapt to force. So whether you use free weights or use machines, it's applying force to tissue, and it can help you with any type of movement that you do, right? So if I go back to RTS, essentially talking about that, Tom talks about working the pieces of the motion you're gonna do. So what are all the pieces and motions that happen when, say, doing a row, right? My shoulder blade's gonna pull back, it's gonna retract. It may elevate a little bit, it may depress a little bit. My elbow's gonna then bend. During that motion, I'm gonna be doing a contraction or holding with my grip with my forearm or with my wrist, which impacts my forearm. So why not prep those pieces before you do a row? Maybe do an isometric squeeze exercise, and then just do a retraction exercise. And then you could do some elbow flexion exercises or extension, because that's the motions that are gonna be happening. And then I might wanna do an isometric, similar to a plank, of keeping my body up tall so that I can keep that stable while moving my shoulder blades and working my back. You can work the pieces of that, and then you, like Tom says, you can then orchestrate the motion and put them all together, right? When I first learned how to throw a baseball, because I played baseball back in the day, I was taught piece by piece the things that have to happen with your body to achieve the task of throwing the ball, right? I had to step forward, I had to bring my trunk back, bring my arm up, all these pieces, and then to get better at throwing, I had to practice working those things together or orchestrating them together. We do this throughout life, and I don't know why it's such a bad thing that we do it with exercise. But machines are bad for us, right? No, they're not. Hopefully you guys are understanding what I'm saying. Machines aren't bad, and neither are free weights. They work together, right? It's on a continuum. It doesn't mean that we always have to do functional training. We always have to do bodybuilding or piece-by-piece training, right? Machine training. We can work those together. It's like our body. Our systems interact together to make harmony as best as possible. Our bodies are always trying to stay in homeostasis, right? We rest, we sleep, we wake up, we do activity, we do that. Our body tries to keep balance all the time. We can do the exact same thing with exercise. We can use bands, free weights, air, body weight, use gravity, use machines. We can do all these things depending on where we're at to help us keep our body as healthy and robust as possible, right? Because the more variability you have within your body, the better you're gonna be as a human on this earth, right? So, that was kind of a long talk there. If I talk about the next one, right? If you've ever thought about this, if you're somebody that exercises, right? Oh, I like to exercise. And you've ever done a squat with a bar on your back or a front squat or whatever it is, the depth that you get may not be the same with a bodyweight squat as with a bar on your back. Or if you take a bar to warm up and put it on your back or however you want to do it, and you squat, it's like, man, this is kind of hard to control, right? I'm trying to go lower, but I'm kind of bending over. But then all of a sudden, if you add load onto the bar, you're like, oh, that's exactly where I need to be. Your depth's good, everything's locked in because you've got feedback. Well, in that scenario, the weight that you add is creating support within your body, right? You're getting some feedback of, I've got this load on top of my body, and I've got to control that based on my center of mass. And that's what's kind of cool, is it's feedback to your system. But the more technically support that you have, or feedback you have, you can actually do the exercise or produce more force within that motion, right? Which is pretty interesting. Now, I'm gonna go back to this whole support thing. Back in the day, there was a guy, he was really, really fast. He was the fastest dude on earth. His name was Jesse Owens, all right? Y'all probably know who that is. So he ran a 100-meter dash. He ran it in 10.3 seconds is how fast he ran that 100-meter dash. There was an interesting, I don't know if I call it a documentary. It's more like a show, like almost like, ESPN does that, E30 or E60 or whatever it is. And they're talking about essentially the type of surface that Jesse Owens had to run on. It was closer to sod, right? Like a sod material, really soft kind of gave. And he had to produce a lot more force, or try to, because that surface wasn't as stable, right? There was less support when his foot hit the ground, if I make that simple. Then we look at Usain Bolt. We all know that dude's fast. He's a genetic freak. He's got really long levers in his legs, but he also has something else on his side compared to Jesse Owens. Usain Bolt ran a 9.5 second 100-meter dash and blew people away. You Google that, you'll see a picture of him, and he's literally like 2 to 4 humans ahead of people body length wise if they're standing vertically. It's crazy. He was moving. But the difference he had compared to Jesse Owens was that he was running on a much different surface. He was running on a track. That surface is much more stable than what Jesse Owens ran on. So with that being said, Usain Bolt could produce more force on a stable surface to help him run faster. And we applaud him for that. Wow, that dude's really fast. But he's a genetic freak, but I'd just be interested, we're never gonna know, but what Jesse Owens would have ran on the surface now. And the shoes, right? The technology is much different. So with that being said, going back to machines versus exercises, or free weights, machines give you the opportunity to produce more force in that tissue depending on what you work, right? And there's rationale to that. But along with that too, it's also important, like if I use the machines in this scenario, it's important to work the pieces. But then on the free weight side, it is just as important to orchestrate that motion. Because as people on this earth, whether we play sports, we go for walks, whatever activities we like to do, we have to orchestrate all that motion on our own. But if there's a piece of our system that's thrown off, that can impact how we move and function in this world. That's why I don't think machines are a bad thing. I think the issue is that people have never actually looked at an exercise machine, broken it down and thought, what is this machine trying to do to somebody's body? What's the resistance profile, which I haven't got into that. But how does the machine go? If I do the leg extension or I do the hamstring curl and it says, if I do the hamstring curl and it says 50 pounds on there, it's not 50 pounds I'm curling the entire time. Based on how the machine's made in the cam, the weight may be easier or harder at a certain point to accommodate and match how my muscles work. That's how they're trying to do with the machines, right? Arthur Jones started that. He built the whole cam system and so forth. But again, back to RTS. In the second weekend that I went there, the whole entire weekend was about resistance mechanics. And it talked about essentially the difference between free weights, bands, air, machines, and then looking at each machine and understanding that not every hamstring curl machine, leg extension machine is built the same. Depending on the person who built the machine, like certain machines might be awful. It might be like, as I extend my legs up all the way, it's the heaviest, which is not what you want. You want it to be easier at the top of that exercise because your muscles are fully shortened. Some companies have made machines really well, some have not. And the thing is if I say I've never exercised and I go to the gym and I'm like, wow, I've seen this leg extension machine or hamstring curl, I'm just gonna pick a weight, sit in it, and curl it. And I might hate it because that certain company's machine might not be made very well. Or I'm not actually getting in the machine well based off of how my body's made. So I think that's where this bias comes in from the fitness industry, saying that machines are bad or we should get away from them. And free weights are the way to go. But the more and more I look on Instagram, people are using straps and so forth to create paths of motion to achieve the exercise they want to do, which they're just making a machine. And people are like, wow, that feels really good. You want to know why it feels really good? Because you've created a scenario where you have much more support. So, with that being said, machines aren't bad. Free weights aren't bad. They all have their place in this continuum of exercise. And if you're curious of how you can use exercise to help you better, find somebody that is honestly a true exercise professional. If you live in this Washington area or Seattle area, come to Curtis Clay Training. Come talk to us. But we would love to help you with that. Now, machines versus free weights. There's no versus. They're teammates. They work together. Machines can be something that you use to work the pieces, and free weights can be the thing that you use to orchestrate those pieces together to have a high-functioning body and muscular system. So, hope that podcast was educating to you. It was intriguing, but thanks for watching. That's episode number 3 of Clay's Cortex, machines versus exercise, or free weights. So, thanks for listening. All right, y'all.